Welcome back to Perspectives. Today we're talking about bullying. Paula, most children have unspoken rules about snitching, tattling, or telling on someone. But what should children really do?
You know, that may be kind of a difficult question, because what happens is it actually goes back to the school, because the school administrators and staff, all the way down to the custodians, they have to create an environment that makes the children who are not being bullied, the bystanders, be able to communicate to the staff that this is happening. I thought on an interesting point was one of the bullying programs that with pretty high validity and reliability as it relates to minimizing bullying. One of the things that they talked about was, and that we don't think about often, we normally look at the victim and then the bully, but really and truly the bystanders are significant in accelerating or exacerbating the bullies. And if I can take just a second to talk about, you know, you have the bully itself, then that's the person that's going to initiate and always, you know, in your face, whether it's verbal, physical, whatever. You have the follower. The follower is the person that's never going to initiate, but they'll just kind of follow what the bully is doing. Then there is the person or the kid that's going to stand there and they really like the bullying, but they won't show you one way or the other whether they like it openly, okay? And then we have the kid that is like, I don't care one way or the other, it's none of my business. Then the next type of student is the student that says, this is terrible. This shouldn't be going on, however, I'm too afraid to do anything. I'm just too afraid to do anything. And then finally, you have that last child that says, I'm going to do something. I am not going to let this happen. So I think it's important for the school to understand that cycle that kind of happens and be able to empower each one of those children to move them in a more positive direction of reporting this kind of behavior in the school.
So Paula, there are different types of bullying. There can be physical bullying, emotional bullying, as in this case, and also this newfangled terminology, cyberbullying.
Yes.
What is cyberbullying?
Cyberbullying actually involves verbal kind of bullying that through the use of the internet, social networking, and texting. Yes. To speak of one, Facebook is really, really big nowadays, and is actually starting all the way down at the elementary level. What I think is really important, though, is that, you know, and I'm kind of big on parents looking at their child and respecting their space. But I think it's important to have a conversation with your child and say, you know what, listen, I respect you and I trust you, but it's not about you. This is about, there are a lot of things that happen on the internet, and I want to protect you from that. So it's going to be either one or two things. You're either going to share with me your password, and that I can come on anytime to check, or I'm going to be your Facebook friend. So that way, everything that's posting on your page,
you can see
I
everything.
can see it,
Right.
and I can ward off any of that issue that it will cause emotionally or socially with a child.
Right. Well, it's interesting. We really never talked about why children bully. I looked at pbskids.org, and they gave some potential reasons as to why children bully. I'm going to mention a couple of them. You tell me what you think. Her parents have spoiled her or haven't taught her about not hurting others. Another is he's getting exposed to a lot of violence in movies, TVs, and video games. Another is he may not feel like he's getting enough attention from his parents or teachers. Would you say some of those are valid reasons why kids bully?
I think so. I guess to narrow it down to be, I think when I talk about maybe the top three, I would think it would be one, that a child has probably witnessed domestic violence within the home. And so when we talk about the mom, the dad, the mom, and then the child, so the child doesn't have or understands that they don't have enough power to overpower their parents. So they take it out into the schools, and they're actually inflicting that kind of pain onto the student. I think the second thing would be just the fact that they've been bullied themselves, and now they're returning the favor, that they're actually going to be bullying. And then the last thing that I can think of, I think when students have problems at home or in the school, something didn't work out really well with them, they start turning in a direction of releasing that anger in a form of bullying other children.
Okay. Wow. Paul, we want to show a video clip, and we want to get your thoughts on it.
Okay.
So in this clip, Paula, which was, I originally saw it on the CBS Early Show. Apparently, the larger guy was being bullied by the smaller guy, and I guess apparently he said enough is enough, and he retaliated. Would you say that happens?
I think it does a lot, but more often than not, it does not, and that is kind of what exacerbate the bullying. I guess, and I can speak from a school counselor perspective and an administrator. One of the things that we try to talk to students about, and even in the case of bullying, it sounds terrible, but it's you encourage the victim not to fight back. Okay, so because what happens ultimately is that they're both going home. All right, so it's going to affect them academically, right?
But do you, before you go any further, but do you think that the victim just had too much and said, listen, I'm tired of this. I've got to do something about it. Maybe the school wasn't addressing the issue. Maybe the parents weren't addressing the issue. So he said, listen, I've reached my saturation point. I've got to address this issue. Right.
I agree probably 100% with that video and the way he responded. What I find really interesting, and as a parent, I would say, because I do have 2 kids, I think my approach for this video, if my child were called in for suspension, it kind of depends on the things that happened prior to that. How many times have I warned you about this is happening to my child and you did nothing? So I'm going to have a problem with you saying that he's going to have to be suspended. So that would probably be the approach that I take on that as a parent. From a school official standpoint, it still goes back to that climate. I'm watching this video and I'm noticing I don't see one teacher, not one staff, not a custodian, nobody. And so ultimately, if these people were in place, it very well could have been prevented. And like I say, you know, within 5 seconds, you know, a fight could break out, and school officials should understand that, and they should be prepared so that those kinds of things don't happen on school grounds.
Wow. I want to go ahead and address some issues. I post a lot of information on our Facebook page and on our Twitter page. I kind of let the cat out of the bag and told the followers that we're going to be talking about bullying. And some people actually submitted some questions. One question we did get was, is there a correlation between bullying and domestic violence? Do you see that?
Actually, the answer to that is yes. I think that there is a very high positive correlation to domestic violence and bullying. And let me explain what I mean, high positive correlation. As domestic violence, the increase of domestic violence or exposure to domestic violence in the home increases bullying. So that creates that positive correlation. Now here's what's interesting. Generally, if you have a child who is the bully, if they continue to bully without consequences, what eventually will happen is they're going to think that their behavior is okay, okay? And so that will in turn translate over to this behavior is going to be okay in all of my relationships, and ultimately even romantic relationships and spouses as they get older and later in life. Now let's look at the flip side of that. What about the victim? So if you have a victim that is consistently being bullied without adult supervision or intervention, what it's saying to the victim is, this is what I'm worthy of. You know, it's okay, I'm supposed to be treated this way. So hence, it really sets them up to be more prone to marrying into a relationship that is filled with domestic violence. So there, yes, there is a very strong positive correlation between domestic violence and bullying.
Let me read a comment from one of our Facebook followers. She's actually concerned about teachers who brush off bullying as a minor incident. And she says she's a marriage and family therapist and see too many times the emotional pain that bullying causes on its victims. Now, do you agree that teachers need to be a little bit more aggressive when they see that someone is being bullied and go ahead and address the issue as it is, as opposed to brushing it under the rug?
I think that what's important is being educated on what bullying is, because bullying is to one person may be very different to what bullying is to another person. And we still have to go back to creating that climate. In the initial piece, when we're first coming back to school, it's important that not only does the counselor teach the children, but the staff needs to understand what is defined as bullying. What does it look like? How does it feel? So that way we're all on the same page when we see, for example, because I remember a child going into a classroom guidance and I said, okay, can somebody tell me what bullying is? And somebody said, well, it's when you crack on somebody. And so this little boy said, that's not bullying, that's just cracking. But no, it's bullying. So it's really important to operationally define what bullying is, and that everybody in the school, from the administrator all the way down to the custodian and the students, understand what bullying is.
So what would be your working definition on what bullying actually is? Or is there, can we just put bullying in a nutshell and just say?
I would say that bullying is when a person, bullying is when a person is exposed to consistent and ongoing over time negative actions from one or more people, and that particular child that is the victim of bullying, they are not equipped to ward off the issues that come with the bullying, would be my definition of bullying.
And that was actually one of the questions that we received from one of our Twitter followers too. Wow, we'd like to thank you for sharing with us on today. Paula, our resident counselor, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
You've been watching Perspectives. Hopefully you've been inspired and educated on today's show. For more information on bullying, please visit our website, perspectivestv.com. Be sure to visit us on next week. Take care.